Hello, all you paranormal seekers out there. My name is Ben, and welcome to Paranormal Corner. Tonight, we'll be tonight we'll be investigating the story of David. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, how long has the activity been going on, and when did you start to see or experience the activity?
Okay, so they have been on and off since I was probably about, I want to say, 9 or 10 years old, and my occurrences seem to be very periodic. So I have had probably since I was about 10 years old, I've probably had about eight notable experiences.
And how much will you
Um,
be telling us tonight?
uh, I think the last time I had one would have it's been a good minute, probably about a year or two.
Okay, okay. So, off the top of your head, what is the first experience that you activity that you experienced that comes to mind?
Um, well, the first experience I had was when I was roughly, again, about 9 or 10 years old. I can't really remember when. Um, when I was younger, I was a little bit more of a religious person than I am now. So it was a school night, and I was sitting down to say a prayer before I went to bed. And as I was laying there trying to fall asleep, um, out of the corner of my eye, saw what I thought was kind of like a faint apparition. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was nothing, but
As most
then,
kids do.
yeah. And as the night went on, within, it seemed like I kept seeing it. And anytime I would pay any kind of mind to it, it seemed as if it was getting closer to me. And I couldn't make out exactly what it was, but all I know is that before the end of the night, it had gotten probably within a 3 foot distance of my bedside before disappearing completely. And it didn't do anything notable. It just like was kind of there, then it wasn't. Uh, but I've had multiple experiences since then that are a little bit more than that one.
Tell us about your childhood home. Do you have any history on it?
Okay,
How old it is and all that?
well, I didn't live in the same set place for extended periods of time. I bounced all over the place as a kid. Um, I Some of the homes I lived in just were just your typical everyday house, not really any history behind them. And then there were others that were a little bit more offsetting, a little more ominous. But I never really thought to look into the history behind any of the places I had lived. Um, other No, I don't think I've ever really looked into the history of any of the homes I've lived in.
Well, on a previous episode, my guest was telling me about the house that she was living in when with her mother, when she was living with her mother at the time,
All right.
and she was saying that the house was really old. There was an add-on for an older gentleman who lived there before them, and that there's two main spirits that would come to show up in the house. A spiritual woman and a guy. Now, the
Okay.
spiritual woman would always linger around a group of trees with a patch in the middle of it. And
Okay.
the guy would always just roam around the house, but mainly between the kitchen and the living room.
Mm. Um.
And
The,
the house that she lived in was relatively old.
Now, see, I've had a couple of different experiences like that. Ironically, none of them that I can think of occurred within a home. A few of them actually occurred in public areas, and one occurrence in particular actually occurred at a friend's house. But it did not happen to that said friend. It only happened to me and one other person who was staying there that night. Um, I haven't had too many experiences within my homes, I guess you could say, other than the home I currently live in. When I first moved here, um, it was shortly after my sister had passed away, and we had a couple of instances where like light covers would fall from the ceiling, like those little like domes that go over your light bulbs, and you have to like screw them in.
Yeah, mine's crooked.
Yeah, we we've had a couple of those fall from the ceiling, and we've had like TVs and stuff turn on and go static with absolutely no explanation, and then just turn back off. Other than that, I don't think I've had an occurrence in my actual home.
Well, as my girlfriend was telling me earlier, your best friend, there's also she's also experienced some stuff that happened after your sister died.
Huh. Well, the there have been some rather interesting things that one of my closest friends has told me. I, for privacy reasons, obviously, I don't want to speak too much about it or whatnot. But she had always one of my closest friends had always told me about these real crazy experiences that she had had. Um,
I mean,
it was actually
you can change her name to you don't have to use her real name. You can always make up a name.
all right. Well, I'll just say D. Um, Dee had told me a couple of different times through her life about her experiences with very intense sleep paralysis, and
Not trying to cut
she
you off, but the guest before, the guest that I had on earlier, also known as your girlfriend,
oh, okay.
also had, and that's the one I was referring to before as well. Also
Hmm.
suffers from sleep paralysis.
Yeah, she had also told me about some of her experiences. I have yet to witness it, um, but she had told me about a couple of experiences she had had. Um, D is actually the friend I was referring to when I said that I had an experience at her house. Um, do you want me to break that story down for you?
Go ahead, we got the time.
Okay, so one day I had to have been about probably 14, 15. So this was within the past 5 or 6 years,
So
considering I'm almost.
about the time that at the exact between the ages of exact same time when your girlfriend had her experiences.
Yeah, right around that time, though, 20, between 2013 and I want to say it was actually in early 2015 or late 2015, I want to say, because I remember it was around Halloween time. Um, in my hometown, or no, excuse me. It was summertime. I was thinking of a different experience. Me and
Well, I'd like to hear about that one too.
yeah, this actually occurred shortly after the one I'm about to tell you about. So me and Dee were basically we were planning to hang out with one of her friends and another one of my friends. And I went to go meet up with said friend and walk back to Dee's house. And he told me that he had found this charm just sitting by the Catholic church that was kind of the local Catholic church.
Wow, that's an
Uh,
idiot move.
and because he considers himself atheist, he doesn't believe in demons or spirits or ghosts or anything like that. He decided to pick it up, and he put it on a chain and was wearing it as a necklace.
Such an
And,
idiot move.
and at the time, I knew very little about like the supernatural or like PK agents or wraiths or anything like that. So I was looking at the charm, and it wasn't any kind of distinct marking. The closest thing I can relate it to is it looked similar to a mixture of a Baphomet and a star. It looked like a mixture of a Baphomet and a Star of David, like two completely different religions, and it looked like almost like a crossover of the symbols. And it had some sort of text on the back of it, and I couldn't make out what it said. I thought nothing of it. And later that day, we were planning on going and picking up a few drinks from our local 7-Eleven. And
So, did the Baphomet have a goat head on it?
it kind of looked like it did, but it wasn't
That
like
is the symbol of Satan, then.
well, true. The Baphomet is tied into LaVeyan Satanism. But again, it looked like a cross between a Baphomet and a Star of David. And there wasn't any distinct features that could be made out on it. And because I know that the Baphomet is tied into LaVeyan aesthetic and theistic Satanism, which obviously all three of them are very, very different. And I think it's the theistics that get into like the sacrificing and the really, really heavy and dark stuff. So anyway, we were making our way down to our local 7-Eleven, and we started noticing that this was just me and the friend, Dee and her friend were still back at the house. We started noticing that whenever we would pass by a porch light or a street light, that they would die, like go out and then like once we would pass them, they would turn back on. And if they didn't go out, they would flicker very noticeably. And once we got to the convenience center, the 7-Eleven, nothing notable happened. But as we started making our way back home, there was, once again, any light we passed would flicker or go out completely. And once we got about a block away from Dee's house, all of the street lights around us just went dead. We didn't think anything of it. We thought faulty wiring, maybe a transformer blew. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, rationalizing it with logic.
Yeah, we didn't think anything
That's
of it.
what people do.
Yeah, and then it wasn't until we got back into Dee's house that something really weird happened. Basically, we went to go take our shoes off in the stairway to the basement. And now Dee and I had always made these jokes that we thought her basement was haunted because there's a room down there where that's covered by a big wooden board, and when you open it, it's like you can see an area in it where it's all concrete, and it looks like a chair was like carved out. So we had always made like this joke that her basement was a torture chamber, 70, 80 years ago. And but the weird thing is, anytime we would get near there, we would just like feel this unsettling kind of like nerve-wracking tension. And there have been multiple times she has like animatronics for Halloween and Christmas that would like, anytime there were times where they would like kick on even though they weren't plugged in. And like things would be like moved or misplaced. So we're taking our shoes off in the stairway to the basement. And he goes down. I can't really remember what he did, but he went down to the stairway of the basement for something. And he comes running back up, pale as a ghost, and says like, I saw something at the foot of the basement. And like he fell down to his knees, like weak as hell, and he was coughing, and I started to like kind of freak out a little. I was like, what in the world's going on?
It was definitely being attacked, or just trying, or whatever spirit was attached to that pendant was trying to take him over.
Yeah, and then I thought maybe he was just kind of playing it up, like maybe he was just trying to scare us, because he was a bit of a prankster. So I thought that maybe he was trying to scare us. So I look at him, I was like, how about this, man? I'll walk down there and I'll say, hey, I'll see if there's anything. Well, I go down to check and I start getting this like overwhelming sense that something is watching me, that something is looking at me. And I look to the left I look down the basement stairs and I see something. It was kind of like a very faint apparition of something very thin with sunken in kind of dark eyes and this inhuman smile. And I obviously freaked the hell out, and I ran back to him and I was like, I described it to him and he was like, that's exactly what I saw. And then I thought to myself, maybe it has something to do with this pendant. We need to get rid of this thing. There might be something attached to it. So I thought about, he was like, why don't we burn it? And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. If something's attached to it, it's not going to burn. He was like, bury it? We don't have a shovel. How's that going to work?
Return to the church, that's what I would have done.
I said, why don't we go walk back to the church? And he was like, no, it's a little too far of a walk for this time at night. At this point, it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, how about this? We'll take it to the lake and throw it into the lake. Dee's house is literally like 2 blocks away from the lake. And I'm like, why don't we just go throw it into the lake? Problem solved. And sure enough, we start making our way down to the lake, and we get to this one little parking lot just before we hit the lake, and he collapses to his hands and knees once again, vomiting this time.
You're definitely trying to possess him.
And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I think back on this and I'm like, why the hell didn't I get affected by it?
Because you were doing
that, and on top of that, again, I was really religious at the time. And I always, you can look back at any pictures of me back then, and I always had a rosary around my neck. And the person that gave me that rosary had like blessed it with holy water all kinds of shit before he gave it to me. And it wasn't until we got down to the docks and threw the pendant into the water that all these weird things stopped happening. And I would like to say that the pendant is probably long gone by now, but
Somebody probably found it.
oof. But yeah, that was like one of the most notable experiences I've ever had.
Your friend is an idiot. For one. Never,
Clearly.
never pick up something that looks satanic or has some kind of odd markings on it.
Yeah, no, at the time, I knew nothing about rituals. I knew nothing about sacrifices. I knew nothing about witchcraft or voodoo or anything like that. Um,
They're probably placed at the church for the exact reason that, because they probably just want to say, okay, whoever had before said, okay, we gotta get rid of this, like you guys should.
Now, is it possible? This is a thought that's crossed my mind multiple times. Is it possible that uh maybe he like maybe the people dropped it at the church in hopes that it being around something holy might kill off whatever's connected to it?
Small
Is it
minds,
possible that
in small minds, yes, but you have to get a priest to bless it and all that to get the thing, get the entity removed from it. Dropping it by itself is not going to do much. If anything, it's just going to piss off the spirit.
oh yeah. So like it was actually this experience that kind of sparked my interest in stuff like this. And it was shortly after this that I had another experience. I had started to make mention about it earlier that actually made me realize that I have some sort of hypersensitivity to the other side. Um, that story was actually quite interesting. Um, Considering you technically speaking don't live very far from me, even though we live in different countries.
About a 5.5 hour drive.
Yeah, so like go figure. Um, I'm sure you've heard of some different legends from Ohio, right?
No.
No? Okay. Well, okay, so there's in my hometown,
Except for the
Sandusky.
penitentiary.
Oh, so you've heard, you're from, actually, that's another story I plan on bringing up. The Mansfield Penitentiary.
Yeah, it was on an episode of Ghost Hunters that watched me.
Yeah, I had an experience there.
Mac.
Yeah, I think she had told me about that.
Yeah, she told me about
So
that today.
one of the biggest legends that isn't the reformatory or Gore orphanage in Ohio is we have this place in Sandusky called the Cholera Memorial Cemetery. Because back during the cholera outbreaks back in the 1800s, Sandusky was nothing more than a freight town where goods could be delivered through the lake and whatnot. It wasn't a tourist attraction town like it is now. So, what happened was basically the cholera outbreak had hit Sandusky so hard that a lot of people were dying very quickly and they had no way to dispose of the bodies. So they dug a mass grave in this little area, and basically that if you knew you were going to die or if you were already dead, that's where you went. there's only 3 marked tombstones, and I can send you. I have pictures because I went there not too long ago. I have pictures that I can send you of like the different monuments and the tombstones and everything.
Well,
The-
after
Uh,
this whole Corona shit's over, we definitely have to go down there to do paranormal investigation video.
oh, definitely. Now, what happened was, and I can send you those pictures so you kind of see what I'm talking about. Um, it was the same year as the stuff that happened with my friend over at Dee's house, and uh, what happened was Dee was telling me about the legends behind Cholera Cemetery. This was a little bit closer to Halloween time, and uh, I can't really remember what. I think we had come up with the idea of me, her, and a few other friends go down there during the witching. I think it was either at midnight or if we went down there during the witching hour.
Which now is 3 a.m. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. I can't remember which was which. I think it was midnight, but I could be completely wrong. So me, Dee, and a few other friends went down there, and it's said that if you are down there at a certain time at night and the wind is blowing just right, you can supposedly hear the screams of the victims begging to be killed because of the suffering they went through during the cholera outbreak. Um, Now, I never had an experience like that, but what did happen was when we got there, as soon as I stepped foot into the front gate of the cemetery, um, this overwhelming sense of dread hit me. And the deeper I walked into the cemetery, now, mind you, there's only one monument in the middle and only 3 marked tombstones, but there's rumored to be thousands of bodies below the soil. So the deeper I walk into the cemetery and closer to the monument in the middle, the more the sense of dread starts to build. And it wasn't until I got not even 3 to 5 feet from the monument that I started. Okay, so out of the left side of my body, I heard somebody close into my ear, like almost as if somebody was standing right next to my ear, go, "Help us." I looked to my left, thinking it was my friend pulling a prank. No one was there. Then I looked back at the monument, and then from the right, my right side, over towards where the tombstones were, I thought I saw someone moving. I look over, thinking it's my friend. Nothing. And I started hearing, like, I started hearing somebody say, like, I'm trying to remember. I think they said something like, "We didn't deserve this." And then I immediately looked to my friend and I said, "You got to get me the hell out of here." I'm like, I looked at, I told my friend, I was like, "I feel like I'm going insane. I'm hearing shit. I'm seeing shit. We need to get out of here." And I, we got back to Dee's house again. And I think one of Dee's friends said something about, why don't, on Halloween, why don't we go down there during the witching hour and I'll bring my Ouija board and we'll try to communicate with the spirits. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, you are going to have to I'm going to have to either be dead or dying before I do that.
Yeah, as I was saying, was it the last guest? That yeah, it's the last guest that I had on the show. The one after your girlfriend. that
Okay.
that she had that people said to her that there was a possible gate that was open, and my immediate thought is that some idiot bought a Ouija board from Walmart or Target or Toys R Us.
It's oh my god. If
Why
there's one thing
why
I've
are they even selling those in the game section? Messing with the
oof.
supernatural is not a game.
I know it was because I had actually looked a little bit more into Ouija boards as time went on,
I know
and I had
the first. I was actually looking into it tonight as well. It was in Pittsburgh at a toy and novelty shop, and it was in the first advertisement in the paper was in 1891.
oh I made a vow to myself that I would never ever touch a Ouija board. I would never try to tempt the other side because I'm not typically one to consider myself religious nowadays or to think about, you know, but the experiences I've had have made me realize that there is the possibility that there's another side that there's like a whole nother world that we humans cannot see for the sole purpose that we are alive. It's almost like a barrier between realities.
I'm not going to be getting a Ouija board, but I'm going to be getting a spirit box to help communicate.
Yeah, I've always wanted to kind of like it's always kind of interested me the idea of trying to communicate with spirits, but I don't want to do it in a way that could potentially welcome them into my life.
Well, we're definitely not going to be messing with a Ouija board. I've already done that, and I'm pretty sure I brought something home when what that was like 15
Okay,
to like 12 years ago.
okay, so remind me when I meet you in person, remind me to get a blessed rosary and carry a bottle of holy water on me.
Nah, the activities have been very sporadic in the recent years. I get like one scratch every now and again.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that happens. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I noticed that like uh, this stuff seems to happen very periodically.
I mean, I have had a lot of relatives die over the years, so it could just be them trying to get my attention.
Now,
The scratches could be my grandpa being mad at me for something.
oh, speaking, I just thought about something that I don't know why I thought back to this, but I was thinking about that whole sleep paralysis thing that we were talking about, and it just brought back a memory, one that I completely forgot happened until, well, just now. Um, it was actually, obviously, you remember my ex. Were obviously I'm not going to list names for privacy.
You
Um,
were talking, like Mac and I were talking about your ex earlier.
yeah, so it was actually at that convention that me and my ex used to attend, Colossal Con.
Will be
Uh,
canceled this year. They shall be missed.
yeah, I know they actually just announced the other day that Colossal Con for this year is canceled. They had pushed it
Weird.
back to September. They pushed it back to, it was supposed to happen in June, and they pushed it back to September, and they just announced the other day that they're not having it this year.
They should have said didn't have it this year in the first place, but continue.
Okay, so as you know, I used to be known for cosplaying a particular character,
Yes.
um, Sebastian Michaelis, who, if there's any anime nuts out there watching this, knows that he is the demon butler from the anime Black Butler. And um, we had just gotten done with the ballroom, or no, it was just before we were going to go to the ballroom dance as Sebastian and CL.
Oh, that's fancy. Never knew. I never been to a convention that had a ballroom dance before.
Oh yeah, the Colossal Con has it all. They've got a gaming room.
Well, you'll find me in the
They
game
got
room.
a yeah, they've got a formal ballroom dance. They've got a rave. They've got wrestling. They've got meet and greets, drag shows. Name it, they've got it.
I'll probably
And
you probably find me in two places: the showroom
yeah,
or the gaming room. If I'm in the showroom, you know I'm spending some money.
oh yeah. Oh, trust me, if you go to Colossal Con and you think you're not spending money, you have another thing coming. But anyway, that's a story for another time. So what happens is I was laying down to relax just before the ballroom dance. I had just went to the bathroom to like, or no, we left the ballroom dance for just a little bit, and I was going to like lay down in the hallways, one of the hallways, and take a quick 5 minute nap uh, before we went into the rave. And I was originally going to go into the rave in my full cosplay and just put some like glow sticks on my Sebastian cosplay, which looking back would have been a huge mistake because it would have been I would have been wearing 4 layers of clothes and a real heavy wig and a face full of makeup. So I take my wig off, I take my contacts out, and I'm laying there and fall asleep for about I fall asleep and then um as I'm asleep, probably not even 15 minutes go by and I wake up, but I couldn't move. And I kept seeing something. I couldn't even open my eyes, barely. And I saw something like very, very similar to what I saw at Dee's house. And it just like sat on my chest and just wrapped its hands around my neck and just like was choking. And I later talked with my ex, and what my ex told me was that I was like very periodically twitching and like my shoulders would come up off the ground and I sounded like I couldn't breathe. And that she said that she had spent like a good 5 minutes trying to wake me up. And once I finally woke up, I just remember like all I remember was I woke up in tears, and my ex later told me that I was repeatedly I was basically laying in a fetal position, crying, asking what the hell was that thing over and over again. And that made me decide to take all of my cosplay off and try to get away from anything that might have been even relatively supernatural or demonic or
Well, I brought you right back into it.
because I
Told
was
you though.
worried because I had like drawn a pentagram. I had drawn a pentagram on my hand and was like reciting different things from the show that could have been like, because it was like to fit in with the character, because in the show he actually has a pentagram on his hand, which obviously anybody who knows anything about the pentagram knows it's not even demonic anyways.
Yeah, but it is a gateway.
It can be if used improperly. I think it just varies on the religion, because I know different religions have different interpretations of it. Like, isn't it like Wiccans that believe that it resembles the 5 elements? And then early Catholicism and Christianity, I believe, taught that it was supposed to resemble like the 5 wounds or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to look more into it. Anyway,
Well, while I have you here,
it's something I'd be open to.
Okay, and I gotta send you. I gotta get you your own EMF reader, your own spirit box, your own microphone, your own camera.
I mean, I'm not exempt to the idea. I definitely think it would be interesting.
Like you can be the away team.
Kind of like your first recruit of the U.S., right?
Yeah, you be part of the away team. I'm going to probably talk to Mackenzie about it tomorrow and ask her if she wants to be on the team as well.
Yeah, and I know that I'm almost certain that it was my girlfriend that had said something about she would. I don't know if it was her that said that she wanted to get into ghost hunting. I could, don't quote me. I could be wrong there.
Well, I could talk to JC tomorrow.
True. Because I think it was her. It might have been her dad that said that he had indulged in some ghost hunting at one point. I could be wrong there. I can't really remember.
Well, I'll talk to JC about it.
Okay. Oh, I have that one other experience I almost forgot. Um, at the Mansfield Reformatory. Um, do you want me to get into that, or do you want me to save that for maybe another time?
Yeah, get into it. We can have a longer episode today. For this
What's up?
episode. I said get into it. We can have a longer episode for this episode.
Okay. Oh, so that's the last notable.
We already are 40 minutes into the episode already, so it's a bit more longer.
So, fair enough. That's one of the last notable ones that I can think of right now. I'll have to do some like uh, memory digging and see if I can remember anything else. But with the Mansfield Reformatory, what? Okay, so they have this thing every year around Halloween time where they open up the prison as a haunted attraction where people could come through. And they have the actors trying to scare you and da 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 da. So it was me and D actually. It was the first time. D had gone to it multiple times, and it was my first time. I had to have been probably 15, 16. My first time ever going, or maybe I was younger, I can't remember.
Oh, before you continue,
But
it was actually used in Shawshank Redemption. The movie Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank.
oh yeah, yeah,
Max told me that earlier.
yeah. I think they used it for the shot, and actually, it's been part of a couple of different musicians. I know Lil Wayne shot a music video there. Another band whom I will not mention because I do not want to give them any sort of exposure or publicity. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
They shot a music video there. Which I'm pretty. Did Mac tell you the story behind the Mansfield Reformatory? Or are you already familiar with it?
It was actually on an episode of Ghost Hunters when I was a kid.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you know a good chunk of it then. Yeah, so basically, long story short, basically, it was a, I want to say like 60, 70 years ago, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, give or take. Basically, a riot had broken out in the prison, and a bunch of inmates started like taking over the guard towers and fighting back against guards. A lot of prisoners and guards died. during the riot, and they never wound up tearing. They just built a whole new prison and never wound up tearing them down. And it's kind of like a real twisted monument, or like a real twisted sightseeing attraction. Hence why they do the haunted attractions, and they have like the attraction where you can try to spend a whole night in the prison. Um, yeah, I definitely want to try to do that. I want to try to do the stay a whole night in the prison thing. But basically, what happened was I was going there for the haunted attraction. It was my first time going, and it was a huge step up compared to, like, Hollow Weekends and some other local things. So we're waiting in line, and nothing seems out of the ordinary until we get up to the ticket, until we get our tickets and get them punched. Um, I remember walking forward. Dee and her dad, for some weird reason, would always make me go first at haunted houses. Bastards. um, and we started making our way up the stairwell to go to the first floor where all the actors were. And from there through the whole walkthrough, which took about an hour, a lot of I had seen multiple apparitions, and I had that same experience as the Colorado Cemetery, where I kept hearing people talk to me that weren't there, and I kept seeing things that weren't there. And of course, I'm in a haunted house. I can't just be like, I don't think this is a good idea, and chicken out. So I'm having to tough it out for a whole hour, and it's just getting worse and worse. And like by the end of it, I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. I feel like I'm like, you know, and I've told this story to a couple of people, and they're like, "Are you sure you weren't just getting overhyped?" And I'm like, "No, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened." Um, and I remember seeing a couple of different things. There was one area in particular where you walk through one of the cell blocks, and the cell blocks are like, 4 or 5 stories high with metal gates where the prisoners would have to walk to like stairwells and all that happy nonsense. And I swear to you, there have been multiple times where I thought I saw somebody fall from the rafters, or um, walked past cells and thought I saw bodies hanging in the cells. And it was just like not nearly as notable as things like Colorado Cemetery or anything like that, but it's just like small random things where like I'm just, and I tried to dismiss it as maybe I was just paranoid, until I went through a second time and had that exact same experience. Literally the following year after that first time, I went back and had that exact same experience. But so then I was like, you know what? This is how I know that this isn't, just me being paranoid. This is legitimate, actually having these experiences. And it was even more weird considering the fact that my friend and her dad both told me that they couldn't hear anybody, or they never saw any. And I'm just like, okay, I'm either losing my mind, or I can see, dead people.
And this is exactly why you're the stateside away team leader. That's where you're going to be. I talked to my friend, told her that you got a new team member stateside, and told her that you're going to be the stateside away team leader.
All right, and I have a couple buddies around here that'll probably be interested. I know a couple friends. One of my really close buddies, the one that made that rosary for me, told me that he wanted to get into some ghost hunting. So I think I think I can get him in on it.
Thing is, you have to report back to me after every find. I'll have to send you a copy once I'm done with the book. I gotta send you a copy of the notes so you can get a quick
Okay.
read and give it to the members.
Alrighty. Well, I definitely look forward to that.
Reason why I'm talking about it on the podcast because ghost hunting has to do with the paranormal, and the podcast title, the way the podcast is called, Paranormal Point,
Yeah, it makes sense.
and that's also the series that's the series. No, not the series is not only going to be podcast. Podcast is the only thing I can do at the current time because I still got to do some more research on ghost hunting and all that.
Oh, for sure.
So right now, I can do the podcast, which makes it easier to get content out on the series.
All right,
So
which makes sense. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where like what's the word I'm looking for? You can kind of promote yourself before you get into like, the real, before you get into the real deal.
and I have an intro already, like a video intro that will change from time to time. Once
Right.
things start improving and all that.
All right.
I probably have like a voice over thing going on as well. Like in this episode, the stateside away team expect investigates said location. So it has something like that going on.
All righty. Yeah, it's well. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing everybody's stories, and it
Oh,
feels good to know that you're doing stuff like this because it
by the
kind of
way,
gives.
if
What's up?
any of the equipment I send you gets damaged, you have to replace it. Your role as team leader is that you have to replace any equipment that gets damaged.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Which I will do my best to make sure that doesn't happen because I don't make a lot of money.
Yeah, I gotta get cameras with night vision. I gotta get spirit boxes. I gotta get one of those kind of microphones. You know the ones that have those like two crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, parabolic microphones. I gotta get some of those. I need to
Yeah.
get
And
I need to get a better editing program onto my laptop. I have a Audacity, so that's taken care of.
right. See, and it's nice that you're doing stuff like this, even just starting out with the podcast and just getting people to talk about their stories. Because, it kind of gives someone like myself, it it makes me feel good to know that I'm not alone and that there's other people out there that have had similar experiences. And you know, I can't thank you enough for at least inviting me to come on and discuss my experiences. And I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else has said. And
And don't forget,
uh,
you also have to email me any video and any audio that you have.
I'm sorry, one more time.
When you get the equipment and start doing your investigation stateside, you have to
Okay.
email me any video and audio you have. Like send me copies of them.
Oh, for sure.
And always back up the copies on a CD, extra hard drive, USB drive. Just make sure you have a copy of the original.
All right. I typically keep all my files on a flash drive, so uh,
Yeah,
I'll just have to make an extra folder for it.
I was reading that earlier. Like I was reading that on Friday morning or Saturday. Yeah, I think it was Friday that to always back up your files.
Yes, definitely. It's kind of like the same rule as save frequently, save often.
And to have them in numerical order, like audio clip 01, audio clip 02, and so on.
Yeah, it's important to always have backups just in case something gets lost. Or maybe, who knows, I don't know. I get what you're saying, though. It's always important to have backups just in case.
Yeah. What I'm going to do once I get through this book, go to a photocopy everything, and send the whole thing through the mail. And then you can make copies of the copies
All right, for sure.
to give out to your team stateside.
All right, I'll definitely have to reach out to a couple people and see if they'd be interested.
Well, nothing's set in stone yet. I still gotta get through this book and get buying the equipment, and we still gotta wait for Corona to be over.
True. So it'll be a minute, and it's probably going to cost a pretty penny.
But
So,
if any of your friends want to be a guest in the podcast, let me know.
all right, I'll over the next couple days, I'll ask around and see if I have anybody who might want to talk about their experiences. I got a couple people in mind. I'll have to send your way.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. David, thank you for joining me.
All right, not a problem, and thank you once again for having me.
Stay tuned for the next thrilling episode of Paranormal Corner. Have a good night, guys, and stay spooky.